Dear colleagues, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to who is with us on WebEx and to who is now watching this video. The Geneva Environment Network has the pleasure to welcome you today virtually for a high-level briefing on the resumed fifth session of the United Nations Environment Assembly, the world's highest level decision-making body on the environment. Prior to the sessions of the United Nations Environment Assembly, the Geneva Environment Network and the United Nations Environment Programme Regional Director have taken the habit to welcome the presidents of the Assembly to Geneva at the International Environment House for in-person briefing sessions to the large international community and permanent missions active in this field from our region. Due to the ongoing sanitary situation last year, we welcomed the President of the Assembly virtually to brief us on the first segment of the fifth session of the Assembly. And today it's again virtually that we are welcoming the presidency team and other guests. We hope that for the next editions, we will be able to do these events in person and hybrid format again. Today's session will be moderated by Bruno Pozzi, the Director of the Europe Office of the United Nations Environment Programme. Bruno will introduce you to today's guests and guide you throughout the event. Before I hand over to Bruno Pozzi, let me remind you that the documents presented, the summary, as well as the video of the event will be made available on the webpage of this event. The link will be shared in the chat. Throughout the event, you can raise your questions by using the Q&A box. We will use your questions to feed the discussion after the presentations. With that, Bruno, over to you.
Thank you really much, Diana, and once again, welcome everybody for this 1-hour session on the UN Environment Assembly, the second part of it, as we had indeed a first session which was more on budgetary matters and administrative matters, but also adopted the medium-term strategy of the UN Environment Programme and allowed us to really go with a clear vision on what is important to deal with in the environment. And as we build the Sustainable Development Goals, still 8 years to achieve them, we have the realization that we need to build it on the box, which is central to development, that is the environment. And to do this, the medium-term strategy and UNEP as member states have positioned UNEP through the medium-term strategy to deal with the triple planetary crisis that we are witnessing. Climate change, obviously, which is very central, and we know that action needs to be taken to decarbonize very fast now, but also pollution, which is very central in what we're going to discuss at this UN Environment Assembly at the end of February, and the loss of biodiversity, which links us to the theme of the Assembly itself, which is nature. To discuss this UNEA 5.2, as we call it, session, we've got a panel, a high-level panel of speakers. We will first have the pleasure to listen to a video message by Minister Espen Barth Eide, who is Minister of Climate and Environment of Norway, and in this function, the President of the UN Environment Assembly as well. After this video message, we'll hear from the Special Envoy to the UNEA President, who is Ambassador Hans Bratskar, also of the Ministry of Climate and Environment, and Ambassador is also a former Norwegian ambassador to the UN in Geneva, so you know what the SDGs and what our action in the United Nations is. After that, we'll hear from my colleague Aline Nsigama Umutoni, who is working in the Governing Affairs Division as advisor and therefore closely involved in the preparation and the setting up of this important Environment Assembly. Then we will have the pleasure to welcome my friend and colleague Felix Wertli from the Federal Office for the Environment of Switzerland. Felix is the head of the Global Affairs section of the International Affairs Division in the Ministry, and a very important friend of UNEP, and knows by heart what we are aiming at as an international community with this UN Environment Assembly. Lastly, we will have the pleasure to welcome Sacha Gabizon, who is the Executive Director of WECF International, and will bring the voice of civil society into this debate. If things go well, and I hope they do, and I'm looking at the clock already, we should have the time to take a number of questions and wrap up and finish at around 2 o'clock. I think let me, before we go on to the video, thank our partners. Obviously, the Geneva Environment Network and the team who, with Diana, organizes this event, but also the Swiss Federation for the constant support they give to the network, which is one of the important voices of the environment in International Geneva. And we have the realization more and more that what is decided in Nairobi, what is leading the global movement on the environment, needs this echo chamber of Geneva, because it is not something which is decided in a small sphere of environmentalists that we are discussing. It is really the future of our planet and of our people, and therefore it has a direct impact on what we decide in Geneva. But also because we are online, we bring it to the world, and I'm really glad about that. With this, Diana, if you agree, I will turn to the presidency of this UN Environment Assembly, and we will first hear a video message from Minister Bart Heide.
On the 28th of February, we will gather in Nairobi, the only UN capital in the Global South, for UNEA 5.2. It is the United Nations Environment Assembly, and it will raise the attention to the whole world that it's time to act for nature. UNEP was created 50 years ago. The United Nations Environmental Programme is the oldest of the organizations dealing with environment and climate and nature in the UN, and it's in many ways the mother of what has come later on the climate front and on the biodiversity front, and also in the work against pollution. It's extremely important this year that we see all these work streams coming together. Glasgow was a climate summit that put strong emphasis on nature. We're moving towards the biodiversity summit in Kunming, and this UNEP, which is of the 50th anniversary, will have a particular focus on plastics and the need to move towards a global treaty on plastic litter. Plastic is a relatively young product. It was not around when my grandmother was born. It became common use when my parents were grown up, and has become omnipresent in my lifetime. But still, it's all over the place. We throw plastics into nature, we throw plastics into the ocean, plastic that we can see, but also plastic that eventually turn into microplastics and nanoplastics, is eaten by fish, and then we eat the fish and it ends up even in us. It's a major challenge to nature, it's a major challenge to global human health. All this will be on the attention of the Assembly. I wish you all welcome to Nairobi in February, whether you come there physically or whether you follow digitally, which is also possible. And I really want us jointly, whether you work for government, whether you are in business, whether you are a consumer, or whether you are in an NGO, that we all come together to show that it's time to act for nature.
So we've just heard from Minister Bart Heide, who is president of this session of UNEA, that it's time to act for nature. And he has set, indeed, part of the agenda emphasizing the important work that we've got to do on pollution, notably plastic pollution. There's a lot that's going to be discussed in at UNEA, and to deepen the message of Minister Bart Heide, I've got the pleasure to turn to Ambassador Bratska, who has accompanied the process with the presidency since the beginning. Ambassador, over to you.
Thank you so much, Bruno, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be with all of you this afternoon, and to provide a brief update as we are getting very close to part 2 of UNEA-5. As you will have heard from Minister Espen Barth Eide, 2022 is indeed a very special year. as we mark 50 years since the first ever UN conference on the environment, organized in Stockholm in June 1972. Looking back on 50 years of work, we can be proud of the many achievements we have had, and be proud of the role that UNEP has played during this half century. The 1987 Montreal Protocol and the Minamata Convention are just two examples of how the world has changed in a positive manner through the work we have done through UNEA and through UNEP. We must be inspired by these many achievements and then speed up and increase our actions of today and preparing for the future. Minister Eide was very clear in his remarks. We stand before a UNEA that might be historic. More than 150 United Nations member states, some 80 large private sector actors, and united civil society are now calling for a decision to launch negotiations of a new global agreement on plastic pollution. We need stronger global commitments, and we believe that a legally binding global agreement addressing all sources of plastic pollution and promoting measures across the entire life cycle of plastics will be the most effective solution in the long run. An agreement will not, of course, solve everything, but it will bring all actors together to find solutions to deal with plastic pollution, one of the fastest growing environmental challenges of our time. A problem that transcends boundaries and can be found in all parts of the environment. I would also like to mention to you that we are coming to the end of a very long process with work on the ministerial declaration. It has been important for Norway throughout as the pen holder to work in an open and transparent manner. We have gone through several rounds of written inputs and have used every possible opportunity to listen to views of member states and those of other stakeholders. We have now circulated the final draft, and there's emphasis in the draft on the need to deal with plastic pollution and loss of biological diversity, the need for sustainable development, to end poverty, and there is a strong recognition of the need to mobilize more means of implementation. Other issues I would like to mention that Norway supports the proposal to strengthen the science policy interface for chemicals, waste and pollution by establishing an independent intergovernmental panel. The third planetary crisis, besides climate change and loss of biodiversity, clearly requires broader action. There are also resolutions promoting to support nature-based solutions, promoting green economy and a green recovery as we build back after the COVID-19 pandemic, better management of our resources and addressing the environmental consequences of different human activities at the intersection of the three global environment crises facing us today. Let me then, at the end, say that the pandemic has shown us both the possibilities, but also the limitations of working online. After almost 2 years, the global community will finally come together around tables and take action to address the global environmental crisis we are facing today. And we are conscious of the need to build back better from the COVID-19 pandemic. We need the backing of every stakeholder to achieve a successful UNEA-5 Part 2, as states can simply not do this work alone. I would therefore like to repeat what you heard the president of UNEA-5 said in the video, that we need everyone from business, civil society, member states, online and in-person participants to come together and work for ambitious decisions. And I look forward to working with you and to a successful UNEA-5 Part 2. Thank you so much, Bruno.
Thanks a lot, Ambassador, and thanks once again for indeed concluding on the level of ambition that we have for this UNEA. It is a critical moment, in maybe a historical one, as member states are indeed discussing an important step in tackling pollution, putting biodiversity back at the center of our development, while also increasing action to defeat climate change and to get a carbon neutral future. These are very important moments, and as Secretariat of the UNEA, the UN Environment Programme is playing an important role, convening nations and member states around these issues, driving the process of negotiations of resolution, and ensuring that the leadership dialogues that will take place during this UNEA session, but also just after, because I didn't mention it, back to back with UNEA, there will be UNEP at 50, which is a special event to celebrate our achievements, but also look at the future that we build for UNEP. At the center of this work lies all colleagues of the governing affairs in Nairobi, and to present the work that we are doing to facilitate this session of UNEA 5.2, I've got the pleasure to welcome my colleague Aline, who is gonna now take the floor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Aline. We can hear you now. Yes.
Perfect. Good afternoon. I'm pleased to share some update on where we stand on preparation for UNEA 5.2. So as you know, member states have, because of COVID-19 pandemic, they have decided to hold the UNEA-5 in 2 steps. So the first one was held on 9 in 2021. This and focused on focused on administrative matters. The second one, which is the resumed one, which we are preparing right now, will start on 28th to the 2nd March, and will be followed by a special session from the 3rd to the 4th March to commemorate the 50th anniversary of UNEP. Before that, we will have the OECPR to prepare that meeting. So the main outcome of UNEA 5.2 will be the ministerial declaration on the theme, the main theme of UNEA 5, strengthening action for nature to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. We will finalize the political declaration under the General Assembly Resolution 73/53, and as you know, this is has been decided will be the main outcome of UNEP at 50, and will be the input to Stockholm plus 50. Then we will take a decision on the provisional agenda and dates and venue for the 6th session of UNEA. We will elect the president and the bureau for the UNEA 6. And so far for this session, we have 17 draft resolutions which have been submitted, and which comprise 15 draft resolution, 2 decisions from the Secretariat. The work to organize this resumed event is well advanced. We have received input from regional groups, which has heard their ministerial forum, such as AMSEN, the Africa Ministerial Forum, the Latin America Ministerial Forum, the Asia Pacific one, and the major group are meeting to provide input for UNEA 5.2. UNEA 5.2 and UNEP at 50 will be in a hybrid format. The registration is ongoing, and the numbers I can share right now, as of Friday last week, we have so far member states, we have 500 in person and 200 online roughly, and we have major group 270 in person and 250 online. We are IGOs, we have 15 and in person and 19 online. And in terms of ministers in person, we have so far 43 who have confirmed and registered, and we have 12 who will be participating online. This is the clustering of the draft resolution submitted for UNEA 5.2. They have been put it in cluster, and we have the CPR has nominated co-facilitator to meet with the proponent of those draft resolution, and to try to start the first reading and the second reading, and start some, we don't really call it negotiation, but to start having some agreement before the OECPR, where the negotiation per se will start. So we have 5 cluster, as you can see here on the screen. What I can share on this is that the draft resolution from Rwanda and Peru on the international legal binding instrument on plastic pollution, and which Japan submitted quite similar, the same draft resolution, have been merged. And then a new draft will be shared with member states, and this week we will start. There will be informal meeting led by a co-facilitator before the OECPR starts on 21st. So the key preparatory meeting are the first is the third consultation on the General Assembly Resolution 7333, which will take place this week from 16 to 18. Then we have the OECPR, where we are going to really start the negotiation per se of the draft resolution we have. Then we have the resumed session, which we start on 21st to the 2nd March. And during the same time, we will have regional group. They will be meeting in the morning before the meeting starts. We will have the Bureau of UNEA meeting. Then we have the opening plenary national statement. We have issued guidance for member states to express their intention to speak at the national statement. The guidance is available on UNEA-5 website, and it's open until the 20th. And we are encouraging member states to register for that. Then the committee of the whole will be established on the first day, on the 28th, and it's going to deal with all the outstanding draft resolution. And then we will have the high-level segment on the 2nd in the morning, and we have 2 leadership dialogue at UNEA 5.2, and guidance have been sent out as well for those who wants to attend. The information is also available on the website, on your UNEA-5 website. There's a multi-stakeholder dialogue. Guidance and the concept notes of those leadership in the multi-stakeholder dialogues are also available. And the side event, we had a process for the side event, and we came out with a list of 21 side events. 17 of them will be held online, and four of them, the flagship, what we call flagship side event, will be held in person, in hybrid format, in person, but we'll have the online for those who cannot attend, who cannot be in the complex. The list of the 4 flagship events. The theme are Natural for Climate, which we focus on the implementation of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. The second one is the Natural for Food, Sustainable Agriculture. The third one is Natural for Job, Global Biodiversity Framework 2020. And the fourth one is Natural for Human and Ecosystem Health, Step for Participatory Process towards a Global Agreement on Marine Litter and Plastic. Then on the we will have a closing plenary on the second. Then on the third, we will have UNEP-5, which has also an opening ceremony, which will be combined with the high-level segment, and we will have two leadership dialogue, looking back and looking forward, and that another dialogue organized by major group, and this session will be chaired by the president of UNEA-6, who will be elected at the closing ceremony of UNEA-5.2. Next, I think this closes my presentation. I'm here to respond to any question you may have. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Aline, for setting the scene, if I may say, on UNEA. The 2 weeks that are coming, I mean, starting next Monday, are extremely important. A lot of work has been done in the last 12 to 18 months to bring us there, and it's really emotional for us at UNEP to see that we are getting there. 1 week of negotiations to go in the open-ended committee of permanent representative, and then the hybrid ministerial meetings of UNEA 5.2, where hopefully a number of these resolutions will come into reality, and we really expect, as has been hinted by the Norwegian presidency, to have a ministerial declaration and presidential and statements that are of high ambition and high quality, because this is what our planet needs, and this is how we will still making it on time for the SDGs. I understand that Sasha has had difficulties to join and is not with us, which is very sad. But I just want to mention then one or two things before turning to my colleague Wandi Snake, who is inside my office, the liaison with the major group and stakeholders. I just want to mention that last week the major group and stakeholders have virtually met and debated what UNEA should achieve, and notably they came with a product which is the UNEP we want, which you will understand refers to the future we want of a few decades ago, but also is a call from civil society globally to turn UNEP into the real, I mean, to turn UNEP into an even more important player in the multilateral world for the environment and for the people. A whole process has been also developed with major group and stakeholders, a lot of negotiations, and we've witnessed that in the regions as well. But Wandi, do you want to add just a few words, as Sasha couldn't join?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
We do hear you, Wandi, yes.
It's unfortunate Sasha is not there, but just to let you know that for 4 days, the major groups and stakeholders met in online. Over 230 participants attended the session, and going through the different elements of UNEA, in particular looking at the draft resolutions and what does that mean in terms of implementation and the engagement of major groups and stakeholders once UNEA is over. I think there's a very rich document. It is available. The statement, it's in this finalization process, but they have come up with key messages and recommendations in terms of what they would like to see in the context of the implementation of the resolution. And this is built through what we call the regional consultation process. All the regional groupings or regional offices have been conducting regional consultation with the major groups and stakeholders, the networks in the region, and that is feeding into the global major groups and stakeholders forum. And I think it is worth to look at what civil society is saying. Very powerful messages in terms of where we should be going in the context of the triple planetary crisis, but also the overall issue on environmental multilateralism and environmental governance. I think I would stop over there. Yeah. Over to you, Bruno.
Thanks a lot, Wandi, for summarizing indeed the engagement, and just mentioning to the audience that in the chat you will find a number of links to documents and to the structure of the meeting of UNEA. So we've heard an ambitious presidency. We've heard an ambition from the major group and stakeholders, and as UNEP, we are ready to host this meeting and to deliver with member states the ambition. So from a member state perspective, what is at stake and what do we expect? And to discuss this, I've got the pleasure to call on Felix Wertli. Felix, over to you.
Thank you very much, Bruno. And also thank you for the opportunity to provide a perspective from a member state, what we see as key for this upcoming UNEA. I think it was great to hear already from you that UNEP is ready. It was also great to hear from the presidency that is doing a tremendous, incredible job in these challenging times to organize and support the processes. Also great to hear the support from the major stakeholders groups to have an ambitious outcome. In fact, the environment is challenging at the moment. Now we have 3 major environmental crises, so we have to design effective and efficient measures to deal with them. And we have a chance that UNEP has a mandate to work on these issues and contribute to the protection of the human health and environment. I think the key elements from the mandate of UNEA are that UNEA has to set the global environmental agenda. UNEA can provide overarching policy guidance and defining policy responses to address emerging environmental challenges. And UNEA can now take policy reviews, dialogues, and exchange of perspectives, as well as set the guidance for UNEP. I think also additionally this year we have now in the new MTS that has started to work. That also gives some guidance how UNEP is ready to deal with those challenges. I think also in this regard it's quite interesting what we have on the plate for this UNEA. Among the stages also that is as also mentioned by Ambassador Patka, that we have the second major environmental conference in Glasgow for a long time now, since the start of the pandemic. So it's also great that we will have others coming up, CBD, BRS, Minamata, many others. But it's also a chance to set the tone and to show that multilateralism is getting strong after this crisis and that we are ready to take up the challenges that we have to. Looking at the decisions and resolutions that have been presented, I think the Ministerial Declaration as well also the resolution 73/333 are for sure great chances to set the global environmental agenda, to set the tone, to highlight where we have to work on, and to give a strong signal that we have to deal with those environmental challenges. On the resolution side, we have also interesting resolutions in the plastic, in the pollution pillar. So we already have heard plastic, that is for sure a key one. It's a broad recognition from member states, private sector and civil society that we need more to tackle the global challenge of the plastic pollution. We have a historic chance to agree on a mandate to launch a in-process for legally binding agreement. Since the last one, it has been past 13 years that we have, there was the Governing Council had it 13 years ago. It was the one for the Minamata Convention. So that really shows that it would be a major milestone if we can agree to it. And I think also that we have a chance to agree to a mandate that covers the life cycle, land and sea-based sources, and really to design an effective instrument how to tackle this challenge. Also in the pollution cluster is the science policy panel, chemicals, waste and pollution. Also here, when we come from the thinking of the new strategy of UNEP, where we have also the 3 pillars, climate, nature, biodiversity, and then pollution and chemicals. A similar institution like we know it for IPCC for the climate cluster, with EPAS for the biodiversity cluster, that would really complete the picture and also allow a science-based analysis to trigger more action, to improve solution, to bring better solution to this very important pillar. Also here, I think that is quite an important decision to take. It would be a major achievement if we could agree on this. It would also allow to complete the cluster, to enhance the cluster of chemicals and waste, and also strengthen in the linkages with biodiversity as climate, as then the 3 panels could really work closely together. But this is for the moment not the case, because we are lacking such a science policy panel for this chemicals and waste pollution cluster. Also, in the new MTS of UNEP, we have this kind of underpinning programs. One of them is this SCP, Sustainable Consumption and Production. I think also it's really key to further work on those. We know that economic models have to become more sustainable to alleviate poverty and allow us the development also for future generations. Here we have, for example, the resolution presented by Mongolia on sustainable infrastructure, that is emphasizing the role of sustainable and resilient infrastructure in a green COVID recoveries. We also have the resolution presented by Switzerland on the mineral resource governance that aims to strengthen the sustainable management and financing of mineral resources in alignment with the SDGs, the Paris Agreement, and the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. I think mineral resources as well as infrastructure are key elements for this kind of economic transformation that we are aiming at, that we need to become more resilient to the challenges, environmental challenges, but also to make a sustainable development. So here also chances to move on and agree on those important elements. Last but not least, also we know that science is key in environmental fields. Science is the underpinning for many decisions. We need science that decision makers, policy makers know what is at stake, that they know what are opportunities, ways how they can take up challenges. And at this UNEA, we're going to discuss the future of the GEO, this flagship report of UNEP that is key to inform policymakers about what is happening, what are the big tendencies, what are the environmental data showing, and also to outline what are actions, how to tackle them. So we see it also as key that we are able to agree on the future of the GEO, to design a system aligned also with the data strategy from the UN system and from the work of UNEP doing there, that we have also the future, a UNEP that is able to deliver key data, key findings from the science to the policymakers that allow us to act, take up the challenges and design good solutions. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Felix, and thanks for also underlining the role of science. We are a normative agency, and the normative work that we do is what really brings the science to the world, the knowledge, the global knowledge on the environment. I was talking earlier on the impact that the work we do in Nairobi will have also in International Geneva, and I think that this is a concrete example. By bringing the scientific data and by bringing the policy advice that are linked to this, we have a role to play in the sustainable development framework. This has been a rich exchange from all perspectives, and as I said at some stage, there's only 1 week of negotiation to go, but we can feel that member states are very ready to make an impact on the 3 pillars that are now guiding UNEP in its normative work. And this is really a unique chance to seize for the world as we gather in Nairobi and will most probably, most certainly, that's really my wish, take historical decision on pollution, on biodiversity, and on fighting climate change. We will set up the stage for this super year of 2022 that we'll see, and it has been mentioned by many speakers, that we'll see the world gather on biodiversity with the CBD COP deciding on the global biodiversity framework and what will drive us in the biodiversity sector for the future, with COP27 that will look at climate change and put definitely the adaptation issue at the center of the negotiation, with the Stockholm Plus 50, which will be in between, hopefully, these 2 events, with the celebration of what was the founding stone of UNEP 50 years ago, but we'll also look at our sustainable consumption and production patterns and how we need to adapt them to meet the sustainability goals. It is a super year. It is a year in which we need to mobilize, and I'm really glad to see that this mobilization is concretely shown in the number of participants we've got in this session to prepare for UNEP at 50. I don't know, Diana, if there have been any questions in the chat. Otherwise, I would turn to each speaker to maybe briefly make a wish. This is Valentine's Day, so let's be a bit romantic and make a wish, not to our loved ones, or maybe to our loved ones, which are the ones we live with, but also the future generations that will benefit, hopefully, from the actions that we're going to take. So if there was a wish in 30 seconds that each participant would have for this UNEA as a legacy to the future generations and to the people of this planet, what would it be? Can I start with you, Ambassador?
Thank you, Bruno, and thank you so much to the other speakers as well. And I just want to say that I see there is a question in the chat box here, and that we see the special session and in Nairobi and Stockholm Plus 50 in June in Sweden as very much related events as we celebrate this 50 years of achievements, and also I hope that the political declaration that will come out of UNEA-5 Part 2 will be able to inspire that process as well, and that's why we have been putting a lot of emphasis on that, and we'll hear in the next few days about how we should best proceed with that. My wish on this on Valentine's Day is basically for all of us to do maybe 2 things. One is to as we deal with the issues and the challenges and the problems that we have, to also then be able to look back over this last 50 years and to celebrate, as I tried to do early in my intervention, of all the achievements that have been made and all the progress that have been made. I know that we should and we must focus on all the enormous challenges we have, but I think it's also an occasion to celebrate UNEP as a unique part of the United Nations family, and also the way we have worked and continue to work through that organizations to do very many important things, and then not to rest on our laurels on this Valentine's Day, but to keep it up and continue this work. And I hope that now that we finally can meet in person again in Nairobi, that we will all be inspired to set the course for the next, if not 50 years, at least for the next 2 years and beyond. And we very much rely on all stakeholder, major groups, civil society, and everyone else who wish this process well. And we will count on your your support and your participation in Nairobi and beyond that, as I said. Thank you so much, Bruno.
Thanks, Ambassador, and definitely a wish, a long-term wish it is, because these crises, these triple planetary crises, are there to stay with us and will be the crisis that humanity has got to deal with in the next century, for sure. Aline, if I may turn to you.
Sorry, I was muted. My wish for UNEA 5.2, I think it would be, yeah, just to come joining what the UNEA-5 President said. I think I would wish that we come together to make some changes, visible changes for the future generation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Aline. And so yes, let's try to have decisions that immediately make a change and are visible as well. Felix.
Thank you. So what is my wish? I think my wish is that at the end of the UNEA, at the end of UNEP at 50, that we are tired because we have worked hard, but also that we are satisfied because we have achieved some of the tasks we had to do, so that we are able to take some key decisions to improve the environment. For example, that we can agree on the plastic resolution, that we can provide a mandate for an SPP and so on, that we are able to set the tone with a good ministerial declaration. I think also that we can be optimistic at that would also be nice. So we can be optimistic that we see that we are able to meet again, that we are ready to work together to take the challenge that we have. So if at the end of the UNEA I am tired because we have worked hard, I'm satisfied because we have the outcomes, and I'm optimistic because the outcomes are good, then I'm quite happy. That is my wish.
Thanks a lot, Felix. And for those who have known UNEA, one given is that usually we're tired. But if we can add these other dimensions, then indeed success will be one element that we will celebrate together. There's a number of comments or questions have been made on the sequencing and how the UNEP at 50, Stockholm plus 50 complement each other. I think it is indeed a continuum of action that we are building. It is a continuum of action because we need this super moment. We need this moment to get the world together and really put the environment as the box for the sustainable development. Economy, prosperity, social well-being will all prosper from a good environment, and the sustainability of our prosperity and our future will be guaranteed if we build it on a solid environment and solid environmental considerations. So with these words, I would like to thank all panelists and thank colleagues who have attended and friends who have attended these online presentations. It's only, as I said, 1 week to go, but the momentum is there and the optimism is there. I could feel it as well in the presentation, that we can achieve something unusual and maybe historical during this UNEA. So Diana, over to you for some concluding words on your side and maybe announcing the next events of the Gen, because it doesn't stop here. We are very active in Geneva and we would like to have as many friends online for these events. Diana, back to you.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Just bringing to your attention some upcoming events. In March, there are a few events that are of concern for International Geneva. One is the Standing Committee of the Convention on the Trade on Endangered Species, CITES Convention, which is going to meet in Lyon, which is not that far from Geneva. And next week on Monday, we'll host a briefing on the preparations for the Standing Committee. And then also in March in Geneva, the subsidiary body meetings of the Convention on Biological Diversity are coming to Geneva. And next week on Tuesday, we are going to host a briefing in preparation for those meetings. And then coming very soon, and again, we remain on the topic of biodiversity, the World Wildlife Day, which is celebrated on 3rd of March, and a series of events starting from next week in the run-up to that day that we are supporting our colleagues also from the CITES Convention in the activities they are organizing to celebrate wildlife. A series of links have been shared in the chat. That's where you can find the resources regarding the resume session of UNEA, and some of the links and documents that have been mentioned. I just want to take this occasion to remind you, as I said in the beginning, that the summary of the event, the video, and the links will be shared again in the webpage of the event in case you need to report back on the latest preparations for the assembly. With that, I think we can say we can thank our audience and say goodbye to everybody. Bruno, I leave you the last word.
Thanks a lot, Diana. Thanks to your team, and thanks to the panelists for joining. And I hope that as we go through 2022, we will also at some stage look back and say, well, we had predicted some of the future in this UNEA 5.2 briefing because the results have been there and because it shaped the future of our humanity. So thank you so much, friends and colleagues, and see some of you in Nairobi in a few days. Have a good day further.